Hello and welcome to TALRadio. At TAL, we connect those who are willing to give to those who are in need. And giving is not an easy thing. Dear listeners and lovely audience, you are listening or watching to us, and the beautiful series that you are listening or watching to right now is on self coaching. We've done many episodes on this. And if you haven't watched or heard any of them, then it's my advice. You can either check out our YouTube channel or you could just visit our website and look for the topics and the beautiful series on self coaching. And as usual, I have the pleasure of having Andrew Tallents with me again in the studios of Tal Radio. And Andrew is somebody who doesn't need any introduction. But for those people who really feel that he does, well, he's a self-coaching expert and he's actually coached thousands of leaders across the globe. Andrew, welcome to Tal Radio.
Thanks, Sandy. It's lovely to be here again.
Thank you so much. In the previous episode, we actually discussed about self-coaching, self-leadership, how it can actually help us in our personal and professional life. And I still remember while we were closing the episode, and I said, Andrew, if somebody wants to get a sneak peek into what the next episode is going to be all about, he said, and I remember it clearly that you said it's going to be a lot of drama, Sandy. So welcome to the drama episode. And now you need to tell us, what is the drama triangle?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for that. And this is a lovely concept that people can go away and read about more. But if we remember from the previous episodes, self-leadership is all about us having intention as human beings to lead ourselves effectively each day, where we try and maintain this positive outlook and be who we want to be in relationships. And unfortunately, one of the things that gets in the way of us being that is when we have negative thoughts, when we have negative emotions, which we do every single day in relationships. And what the Karpman Drama Triangle does is just try to give some awareness to all of us about the kinds of roles that we fall into when we're feeling negative. So you can study this online. You can go and look it up on Google. It's designed by a gentleman called Stephen Karpman, Karpman, Karpman. Now, incredibly, he designed this model before I was born. So it was in 1968 that he designed this. And all you need to think about to understand the Karpman Drama Triangle is to think about a triangle in your mind. And at 3 points of the triangle, there are 3 roles that each of us fall into when we're feeling negative. And if I may, Sandy, I'm just going to describe all 3 of them and then give a small example about how we fall into them, both you and I, and how we do that. So the first role that we fall into at one point of the triangle is victim. Now, we all are a victim in a drama triangle when we feel as though it's everyone else's fault and we're feeling very sorry for ourselves and it's not fair and I can't believe it's happened again. And we all behave like this in certain circumstances. And this is called the victim role. But it's a very negative energy, because we're not taking responsibility for the situation we find ourselves in. So that's the first point of the triangle. I'll explain the other 2 and then explain an example. The second point of the triangle is what's called the persecutor. Now, the persecutor is the bully, the person that actually shouts at people, the person that actually tells you you're always wrong, the person that takes control of a situation, that takes control of a situation off you. So it's somebody that's always making somebody else feel like a victim. So it does relate to the victim, but they're the persecutor. They're always right. You're always wrong. And they act in this mode of persecutor. So again, it's a negative type of energy when we're in that kind of role because it doesn't feel right for the person that's on the end of that. And then the third, which is the most interesting one in my view, is the role of the rescuer, the hero. And there are all those people out there that when they see a persecutor acting with a victim, the rescuer comes to rescue the victim to say, don't worry, I'll help you. You don't need to feel like that. I'm actually going to help you now. And whether you like it or not, I'm going to rescue you from this situation of being a victim. Now, the reason that this got negative energy with it is because when a rescuer comes into the triangle, what they're doing is not asking for permission to rescue somebody. They just do it. And it's this natural instinct they have to be in the rescuer mode. So the kinds of people that do this are the ones that love saving people, the ones that love saving the show at the last minute, and they just love that drama of being able to step into a crisis and save the show in that sense. So all these three places in the drama triangle that Karpman talks about are all places of negative emotion, and we are all in them all the time. We just switch between them unless we change mindset. So can I give you a quick example before we move on?
Absolutely. In fact, when you were talking about this
Mm.
basically the triangle that consists of three people: the victim, the prosecutor, and the rescuer. It literally felt like either a Hollywood or a Bollywood movie.
Absolutely, it
Yes.
does. And that's life playing out.
True.
But let me give you a very brief example to see how this goes, because we're all in it. So
Absolutely.
I did this the other day. So my daughter, who's 16, she likes playing on certain video games, and she needed to get some credits to carry on the game, and she didn't have any money. So she basically said to me, can I have the money? And I said, well, you've already had the money, and you can't have it again now until next month. And so if you think about the roles that are being played out there, what she immediately did when I said that was, that's not fair. You said I could. I want to play the game. And she was acting in the victim mode, right? So she had a negative response acting as the victim. I was the persecutor because I was very, very clear. She'd already had the money. She's not having it again. So I'm very much acting as this parent mode and saying, well, no, you've got to
True.
stick to the rules. And so that was the role that I was playing. Meanwhile, my wife then walks into the room and she says, oh, Sophie's had a very, very hard week. You should let her go on to the actual game and give her the money because she deserves to play the game. And she's acting in the rescuer role because she wants to rescue my daughter from the situation. And we're doing this subconsciously a lot of the time. We don't realize that we're doing it. And if you think about any of the relationships that you have, any of the relationships I have, any of the relationships the audience has, if they're feeling negative, sometimes they will fall into one of these three roles without even realizing it. But the language they're using can give them a good indication of where they sit in the triangle.
Absolutely. And I think the kind of example that you gave is like it's in everybody's life, and it's a day-to-day life for most of the people on this planet. I would simply say that. So a very true example and a very relatable example, basically, I would say. So moving on, Andrew, when you talked about this basically a triangle, and you talked about the kind of personalities that we have, do you feel that as individuals, do we tend to gravitate towards certain roles in this triangle? Like, is it upon a personality or the persona that we have? Like, how does that happen? Like, automatically we get into these roles. It's like gravity pulling us towards these characters or roles.
It's such a great question. I'm glad you asked me that question. What I love about this concept and why we can actually change this about ourselves, I'll talk about that in a moment, is because we fall into one of those three roles depending on who we're in the relationship with. So we will get triggered by certain people in certain relationships that force us always to go into those kinds of roles. So I'll give an example again. It may be that a father with a daughter will sometimes fall into that persecutor and victim role just because of the relationship that they've always had. And so the answer to your question is we don't usually gravitate to one. It's the person in relationship with us that moves us into one of those places without us really knowing it. And you could be in victim last month. You could be in the rescuer role tomorrow. You could be in the persecutor role next week. It doesn't really matter. It depends on who you're in relationship with.
So technically, you mean to say it is with respect to the context of the situation that
Yes.
we tend to have all these roles in our lives.
Absolutely.
All
And the
right.
reason it's called a drama triangle is because it's usually got some kind of drama in it. There's usually some negative connotation to it. There's usually some negative feeling, which is why it feels like a drama. And we don't even know we're playing it out. It's just happening around us and we feel frustrated and resentment and we just don't know why. But there is a way out of it. There is a way out of the drama triangle.
Absolutely. And when you spoke about resentment and the kind of negativity that we have when we play all these roles, and we are a part of this. So I just wanted to know, like, is there any kind of a psychological or emotional toll that, staying in this triangle, it takes on us as individuals?
It does. Now, it links to what we talked about in the last episode, which is lovely. So if we remain negative, it's likely that we're going to stay in the drama triangle. And therefore, what we can do psychologically to move ourselves out of the drama triangle and not be in any of those roles is to do three things. The first thing is to become present in the moment, to recognize we're in the drama triangle. So I become present, I notice I'm feeling one of those three roles, I'm feeling negative about it, and I have a choice. I can then move into the present to see what's open to me in terms of my choice. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to recognize that I'm likely to be triggered again by somebody else, by my environment. So I need to be aware of that. So I need to improve my self-awareness in the second point. So my presence improves, my self-awareness of who's around me. So I know how to act. And the third, which is what we talked about and what this whole series is about, is to then demonstrate self-leadership and self-coaching to start behaving in a different way. And the great thing about the drama triangle is that it was modified in 2009 by an individual called David Emerald, which talked about if you did those three things of gaining presence and actually self-awareness and also self-leadership, you can move yourself out of those triangle into another three different roles. But you can only do that if you do those three things first.
All right. And when you talked about, self-awareness, being in present, self-leadership, do you think these three traits that you just mentioned right now are technically the traits that separate the greatest leaders on the earth to the normal individual? We basically, all of us are as such very average human beings, I would say.
Well, it's really interesting you say that, and we've come back to this a few times in our episode. I believe, Sandy, that every single human being on the planet, if given the opportunity, and what I mean by that is that they have the basics in life and they have an opportunity in life to be who they want to be, they could fulfill the potential of the great leaders that we see. And it's very simple. If people can get out of negative spirals and loops and stop being in these drama triangle roles, they can elevate themselves to fulfill their potential as human beings to be a great leader. We've seen this from many people that came from very humble beginnings because they had this kind of mindset. So I believe that everybody out there has the ability to practice this and move into more positivity.
Absolutely. And I really feel that we really, all of us do have that. But coming to the next question, as you know, in every episode, it's always about the two spheres of life that we have. One is the professional, one is the personal. And we talk about if we try to fix drama triangles in both these lives, which one would you feel is a difficult situation to be in? Whether is it at workplace, the kind of drama triangle exists, which exists there in most of the culture, I would say, and most of the offices that you can see around across the globe, or in the household, which is more difficult to deal with and to be a part of it?
Is a really good question. I think in the workplace, we tend to have more support around us in terms of our colleagues where we're working towards a goal. And therefore, whether that's a profit goal or an objective around a purpose, we can draw upon people to help us move out of the drama triangle more easily because we can have that kind of collaboration. And there's more professionalism. When we're at home, it's family. There are triggers, there's emotion, there's past experiences. We don't have as much support. It tends to be sometimes smaller family units. And it is sometimes very difficult to even know at home that we're in a drama triangle because we're just unconsciously playing it out. So invariably, it is much harder at home to move out of the drama triangle than it is at work. But even at work, we have lots of toxic environments, lots of political environments where this triangle is happening all the time. And if it's not being managed from above by senior leadership, then it's still going to be very hard at work. But it's slightly easier there.
It's slightly easier, probably because there are many people sailing in the same boat along with you, facing the same thing again every day. Well, so when you talked about the drama triangle, there are like three characters to it. The victim, the prosecutor, the rescuer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that all these three are basically related? And if they are, then how are they related?
They are related because it's really interesting that if you think about the triangle and all those three roles, at the same time, you can take one of those roles within minutes, because if you have somebody that's persecuting and forcing their will, and somebody that's acting like a victim that they have no responsibility, there's always going to be somebody around that wants to rescue from that situation. So they're all related. You usually have them all going on at the same time in relationships. You can see it in friendship relationships as well. So you've got people who sometimes are a bit quieter, some people are a bit more forceful, and somebody that wants to come in and bring in the person that's a bit quieter and rescue them. So you think clearly and carefully about many of your environments that you're working with, that's community or family or work. You can see this all the time, and it's really good to raise awareness of how you see it and the role that you play in those different drama triangles.
All right. And when we talk about the drama triangle, as you mentioned, there are a lot of negative traits and nobody wants to stay in it. What are the strategies that you could suggest right now to our audience and to our listeners at the moment? What can they do in their personal capacity to come out of that negative cycle?
That's a great example. So what we'll do now, and thank you for the invitation for the question, is to talk about each of the three roles and talk about what's possible from moving from that role into something different where it's more positive by improving presence, improving self-awareness, and improving self-leadership, which we all have the capacity to do. So the first is we think about the victim. So rather than me as a victim in a feel negative capacity, that it's everybody else's fault and that nothing's going to work and I'm going to be in this forever and it's all very, very dark and difficult, what I can do with my presence and my self-awareness is start to say, what are the possible solutions to the problem I'm facing? What responsibility can I take to actually be responsible for this and understand my own responsibility for getting myself in this position in the first place? And if we do that, we create this role called creator. So victim becomes creator in the triangle. So we have three different points in the triangle now when we're feeling more positive and self-leadership led. And what the creator is about, it actually focuses on the problem solving and my ability to solve the problem with help, as opposed to it's somebody else's fault. I can't believe I'm in this situation. I'm not going to solve the problem. I don't know how to do it. I take responsibility. So it's about intentionality, self-leadership, and actually creativity. So that's the first point in the triangle. The second point,
All right.
a second point in the triangle
That's
is going from
interesting.
persecutor to challenger. So persecutor, if I'm feeling negative, I'm going to inflict things onto other people because I want them to do it my way. We can move them on the triangle to a point called challenger, where what we're doing is actually get them to a different mindset, where because they actually are able to think about how they influence people, they can do it from a positive place and do it from a constructive challenge. So I'm now not telling you what to do or what I want you to do. I'm just actually making an offer to you about giving you a different option about what you might want to do. So I'm giving you an idea. Oh, this has happened to you. Maybe you might want to think about doing X, Y, or Z. So it's very much a challenging curiosity perspective, which is very easy to move from persecutor to challenger because you're still being assertive in your authority, but it's coming from a loving place and a kind place rather than from a darker place.
So the victim becomes the creator.
Yeah.
The persecutor becomes the challenger.
Yeah.
And now we have the rescuer.
Yeah. And this is the
negotiate.
best one. Well, the rescuer is lovely because the rescuer can become the coach. And the reason that can happen is because if I tune into my positivity and my self-awareness and my self-leadership and presence, use the skills that I've got as a rescuer, because I'm always wanting to help people and rescue them, what I can do is just put a boundary in place. And what I can do is just ask the question of the victim, do you need my help? Would you like my help? So it's just a very different, subtle chance. I'm not rescuing, I'm supporting and helping. And so what comes from this is this coaching mentality of me helping the victim to understand what their problem is, to understand that they have a responsibility to solve the problem themselves with some support. And I'm working out with them how they want me to help them. And therefore, I'm becoming that coach rather than rescuer, because they may not need my help. They may not want my help, which is what a rescuer tends to do. So a coach is very much standing on the sideline, ready to help if they are required, and understand what the person, the victim, needs from them in terms of that support and help. So that's the final one, moving to that mindset of coach, which is a great place to be in because it's much more engaging and, again, kind and loving, with this thought of there is something that I can help you with here, but it's what you need whenever you need it, and I can provide it, as opposed to just launching in and rescuing somebody.
That is so beautiful, especially, when you said that, the moment you mentioned that the rescuer can actually become the coach, that's you.
Absolutely.
And no wonder, you sound like a therapist. And now when I'm able to do, when I know this triangle, basically, That's how I'm able to decipher it. And I'm sure the lovely audience who's watching to us right now, who've been following up this beautiful series of self coaching along with you and me, I think now they can decipher what a coach really does. They almost act like therapists. They seek permission. They do not force their own decision on you. Rather, they ask you, they seek permission, and that's how they change the course of life for you. That is so beautiful. That's really wonderful, Andrew. So, before I let you go, although I don't want to, but I have to because time is a constraint for you here, what advice would you give to the people who feel stuck at present, right now, in this drama triangle?
It's a really good question. I think there are two or three things that somebody can do. So the first thing is to recognize that you're in one. So rather than be in denial and say, oh, this doesn't happen to me, really just recognize that I probably am going to be in a drama triangle at some point soon. So it's that recognition. The second is to really work on this piece about trying to become as present as you can. So it's really hard for people, but get some support and some help. We can do that by being around people that we know are much more present than we are. We can do that by working out what kind of things re-energizes, like fitness or a walk or being out with friends, but whatever it is that energizes to be back present again. So that's the second thing they can do. And the third thing, which is really important, is to ask for help from people. Go out there and ask for help from friends about the fact you're feeling like this. Do they ever feel like this? What do they do themselves to get out of those situations? And just try and become that different role rather than being the victim or the persecutor or the rescuer. Move into that role of, the challenger, or it might be the coach, or, it might be in terms of the first one we talked around about the creator. So any of those, just try them out, because when you try them on, in terms of roles, it feels much better and a much, richer place to be and a much calmer place to be than in the drama triangle that we're in most of the day. And be kind to yourself. It's normal for human beings to be in the drama triangle. We have to accept we're in it sometimes, but every now and again, lift ourselves out just to see what that feels like.
Absolutely. I think with this beautiful line, I would just add one more thing. The way you said that you need to accept yourself. Absolutely. Because denial mode is not going to lead to anything. Acceptance is everything in life. Accept the reality. So, Andrew, thank you so much for this lovely talk and for this lovely series that you're doing with us called Self Coaching. Any sneak peek, because this was something that I'm sure everybody was desperately waiting for, because we all have drama. Any sneak peek to the next episode that we would be talking about?
Yeah,
Any
it's going to be very
glimpses?
interesting. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, the next example, because building on this, we're going to be asking the question and exploring, who am I in relationships?
Who am I in relationship? That's more spiritual, I would say. It really sounds very spiritual. Thank you so much, Andres, and thanks a lot to our lovely audience and our lovely listeners who have tuned into TAL Radio. I'm your host, Sandy, signing off from this beautiful series. But I'm going to be back next episode, and I'm going to have Andy Tallents along with me once again. Thank you so much.